My name is Jason, and this is Just Watches. Alright, today we have another watch that was generously lent in by a friend of the channel, so thank you for that. This is the Richard Legrand Oceanfarer. So as always, we're going to do specifications, pros, cons, and then if I think this watch is worth the money. But before we begin, I've noticed my views from subscribers is around 7% and has slowly been creeping up. So I would love if you are enjoying the content of this channel to subscribe, and let's see if we can hit 8%. So starting with this case, we have a 40mm case diameter. It's 46mm lug to lug. It's 13mm thick, but I'm including that domed sapphire crystal, and then it has a 20mm lug width. For finishing, it's mostly brushed. There's two sections of high polish, that's these chamfered edges that transition from the side to the top of the case. But other than that, you're looking at all brushing on the case proper. Now, this is completely 316L stainless steel and sized up for my 6 3/4 inch wrist. It weighs in at 140 grams. One final note on the case, I love what they did with the lugs here. They're quite angular, and then that chamfered edge, it starts small, but then it broadens as it reaches the end of the lug. It's something I haven't seen very often, and I like the overall effect on this watch. So the bracelet starts at 20mm, it does taper down to 18mm, it's back up to 21mm on this clasp. We have a signed safety catch, and then it is double push deployant to a milled scissor clasp. And then we do have 6 micro positions, so the combination of these micro positions and small links, you're going to be able to get a good fit on this bracelet. And then we have solid end links, and then the articulation is very good. It articulates all the way across the back of the watch, and then the actual articulation on the links of the bracelet itself is very good. For sizing, it does use a pin and collar system. However, don't be afraid. Seiko's pin and collar system is terrifying because the collars are so small. The collars in this are much bigger. They're pretty much the size of the entire mid-link, so I don't think you would lose them as easily. And then as far as the finish, this has a really cool finish on the bracelet. It's this flat polish, and it just catches the light in really dynamic ways. So overall, a very visually interesting and comfortable and secure bracelet on this guy. So on the case back, we have a screw-in case back that helps to provide 200 meters of water resistance. You can see 200 meters there, 316L stainless steel, and then High-Beat 9039 automatic movement. More on that in a second. But check out this case back. It's this very cool diving helmet motif with 2 anchors, and that's all high polish. And behind it, it's kind of stamped into the dial. You can see that wave pattern. So a very cool case back on this one. So that Miyota 9039, that's a 28,800 vibration per hour movement. So a slightly smoother second hand sweep with 4 movements per second. And then it does hack, hand wind, and has about a 42-hour power reserve. Now this is a good choice for this dateless dial because it doesn't have the movement, it doesn't have the calendar ring, so there's no ghost position. And then I love to see the Miyota 9000 series used in more watches. It's a nice upgrade over the Seiko movement that most micro brands use, and the only downside is rotor noise that can be caused by the unidirectional winding of the rotor, but it's barely audible if at all on this particular watch. So the 7mm screw down crown is gorgeous on this watch. Look at the way it's signed. It has a high polished circle and then almost like a satin finish, and then the RL is high polish as well. It also has an interesting shape, and it's nicely knurled and quite easy to use and grip and operate the watch with. So the crystal on this watch is a domed sapphire, and they did use an anti-reflective coating on the underside of the crystal, which is nice because you can't scratch it if it's on the top side, and then it does help, reduce the number of glares and reflections you catch on the crystal of the watch. The bezel is also sapphire. It's 120 click unidirectional. Always a good sign if I can do it under the camera like this. It has a very clicky, very snappy action with almost zero back play, and then everything lines up very nicely. I really like the bezel action on this watch, and I love that they use that sapphire insert. It's going to be very tough, very difficult to scratch, and then they did lume the bezel as well, which you'll see in a lume shot. So the dial is a very dark blue. It's actually going to appear black in some lights, but you can see under these high studio lights it is blue, and it does have a sunburst effect. Overall, it's very clean with the lack of the date. You just have RL Richard Legrand at 12, and then Oceanfarer automatic and the depth rating at the 6 o'clock. For indices, you have the 12, 3, 6, and 9, and these are all applied, and they are edged in a stainless steel high polish finish, so it makes them catch the light and makes them, it's very easy to read the dial, and it's very easy to orientate the watch with the 12, 3, 6, and 9. I like that overall effect. There's no chapter ring, but you do have the minutes printed along that outer edge. And overall, the dial is very clean. My one complaint is I think there's a lot of space in the middle of the dial. And when I get onto the hands, I have another very minor nitpick. But I would actually like to see maybe the indices and the 12, 3, 6, and 9 Arabic numerals be slightly larger and take up a little bit more of this dial space overall. Speaking of the hands, we have two baton style hands, and they are gabled, so they'll catch light on one side or the other, which adds to visual interest. And then if you watch this channel often, you know I like a long minute hand, and look at how long this minute hand is. It's so long, it looks like it's going to scrape the inside of the rehaut of the watch, and I really like that. My only one complaint on the minute and hour hand is they're a bit thick. They're actually thicker than the indices used to mark the hours on the dial. And I would like to see them either a little bit thinner or the indices for the hours be a little bit thicker. But it's a very minor nitpick. And then the second hand is also very long and it has a nice arrow at the end there. And then all three of these hands are very nicely loomed, which you will see in the Lume shot. So we're going to give it some stiff competition here with the Monster. But as you can see, it does hold its own. It's not quite as bright and as powerful and as lasting as the Seiko Lume, I would say, but it's pretty close, and Seiko Lume is amazing. So the fact that it's keeping up with the Seiko is quite good. The bezel does start to fade quite a bit, but it's a little bit brighter in person. For some reason, the camera's not quite picking it up. So overall, good Lume on this one. And then on the Timegrapher, we're getting a killer result on this Miyota. It's hovering between 0 and +2 seconds a day. Healthy amplitude, minimal beat error, and you can see that 28,800 vibrations per hour. So excellent result for timekeeping on this watch. So here is the watch on my 6 3/4 inch wrist. It's 40 millimeter case diameter. I think it wears slightly bigger just because the bezel is quite thin, so there's a lot of dial, and sometimes that can create kind of an optical illusion that makes the watch look a little bit bigger than it is. But 46 millimeters lug to lug, and overall this is a great size. It's going to be pleasing on quite a number of wrist sizes. And then just check out the way they finish this bracelet and the way the light catches it. It's really cool. They did a great job on that. So pros and cons, starting with the pros, you just have a great set of specs on this watch. You have the sapphire crystal and a sapphire bezel insert. Everything is loomed. You have that high beat movement that we saw we're getting killer results from, about 0 to +2 seconds a day. And then secondly, you have a great bracelet. It's a little bit different from what you normally see, but you see the way they finished it. It catches light in a very interesting way. And then overall, with those really small, really highly articulating links, it's going to be a very comfortable watch to wear, and it's going to be easy to get a really good fit. And then finally, that bezel action is super snappy. It's really nice to use. Everything lines up, and it's just a very satisfying bezel overall. The only con then is a little bit of a design choice. I wish either the hands were slightly thinner or the hour indices were slightly thicker. But for whatever reason, I don't like that the hands are thicker than the hour indices, but that's just a personal preference and my own little personal nitpick with the watch. So is this watch worth the money? Well, it's $389, and you are getting quite a set of specifications. And then keep in mind, watches that use the Miyota 9000 series movement, that movement is much more expensive to buy, and it will drive the price up over what you more commonly see in micro brands is that Seiko NH35 or 36. But you can see the Miyota, it has that smoother sweep, and I think sometimes, this is anecdotal, but I have seen very good results as far as accuracy. So I would consider the Miyota 9000 a slight upgrade against the Seiko NH35, but you do pay a little bit for that. But even including that Miyota, I think the overall price on this, you're getting quite a good value on this watch, and if the design speaks to you, I don't think you can really go wrong with this one. So there you guys have it, the RLG Oceanfarer. What do you think about this watch? Leave a comment in the comment section below. As always, if you're enjoying the content of this channel, I invite you to subscribe. And if you like the contents of this individual video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. That's all for this time. My name is Jason, and you have been watching Just Watches.